Fellas, welcome back to the Front Row Dads podcast. I'm your host, John Vroman, and today I'm talking with Greg Denning. He is a husband, father of 7, and he's a life and business coach to execs in the business space. He also is the podcaster for the Extraordinary Family Life podcast that he hosts with his wife, Rachel, and the Be the Man podcast. His first book, Becoming Dangerous, is going to be released later this year. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to talk with Greg today is because I found out that he alone or with his wife or with his kids, one way or another, have traveled to 50 different countries. He's done a ton of adventures with his family, and he does these really cool epic adventures with his wife every year. And so the Vromans travel a little bit. We get out there, but not to the level that Greg is. And I was really inspired to find out how he does this, getting into the practical aspects of what works and what doesn't around this type of lifestyle. And we talk about moments that have changed his life throughout all this travel. We're talking books and musicals and all sorts of different stuff, including a time when Greg was part of a rescue on a mountain that was a pretty inspiring story. I won't spoil it. You'll have to listen to the show to get it. But guys, it's going to be a great conversation. I was excited to introduce Greg to the Front Row Dads community because he reminds me a lot of you guys who we tend to attract to this tribe. So we're going to kick off right here in the interview where I ask Greg where he's residing, and we're going to talk about where he's living now, but then all of the adventures that he's had with his family. All right, guys, if you're enjoying the Front Row Dads podcast, consider taking the next step and joining the Front Row Dad Brotherhood. Just go to frontrowdads.com for more info. All right, enjoy the show.
We are just outside of Atlanta, but actually rolling out tomorrow morning to look for another home base in Europe. So pretty stoked on that. Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. Adventure. Tell me, all right, let's go there, dude. Where are you looking? Where are you heading to?
We're looking at southern Portugal right now. A little bit of sunshine and some waves and some cliffs. You play in the water. Like I'm kind of a dork like that. Like I love like these adventurous places, right? If I can go, like where are these cool spots where I can really play hard with my kids? Yeah. Right. I love being in places like that.
How old are they again? There's 7, right?
Yep, 19 all the way to 5, a full mix. Dude, so the 19-year-old has just moved out. So I'm down to 6 kids. Getting easier, man.
I think if everybody just turned off the podcast now, they would feel like, dude, if he can do it with 7 kids, I can do it with 2.5.
Yep, you can pull it off.
So 19 to 5, and you're looking at going to Portugal. Yep. And have you been already? Are you going back?
So this is an interesting one. We've never been to Portugal.
Okay.
But we're like, okay, new country and like we've done a ton of research and we've traveled extensively. I've been to almost somewhere around 50 countries.
Yeah.
And so we think this one will be a temporary base, right? A base for us to kind of travel and see the world from.
When you go on these adventures, are you keeping home base? Like, and you're in Atlanta right now, correct?
So it depends. Like, yeah, we kept this as a base. And like last year we did a 7-month road trip through all Mexico, Guatemala, and then literally coast to coast of the US. We just wandered, had adventures, met up with amazing people, did epic stuff, and kept it as a base. We came back to it. It was great. And then there's other times we pack everything up and we just like, let's go wander and see what happens.
Nah, man, that's so wild.
It's kind of wild.
So what does homework look like when you're scouting out a new spot? Like walk me through the process of, do you pull up the map and throw a dart and see where it lands? Are you going on, recommendations of friends? Walk me through how Portugal.
Yeah. So, and it's all changed. So we've been traveling for 15 years, man. And when we first started, like there were very few blogs, not a lot of traveling families. We drove from Alaska to Panama, and on it, this sounds nuts. We didn't even take a map. We're like, we're just gonna roll south. We'll ask for directions. And it was awesome. Just local waterfalls and beaches and cool people and the best restaurants. And we just wandered from Alaska to Panama. But now we're jumping on, looking for recommendations, cool places. There's Airbnb now, where before we'd roll down and be like, hey, anyone know of anything to rent? Like, this would be cool. And so it's a lot easier now. There's tons of blogs, cool things. So we'll start looking for adventurous stuff, lessons, because our kids are always engaged in cool lessons and learning new things. So can we play sports? Can we learn instruments? Can we learn the language? Are there really cool things to do around here? Are there groups to meet up with? Do we want to learn a language, and which language, and what experience you want to have? So the bulk of our traveling experience has been driven by what experiences we want to have as a family or specifically for our kids.
How much do you involve your kids in deciding where you go, and how much of it is like, kids gather round, we're heading to Portugal?
I would say 80-20, right? 80% they're involved. Like, what do you guys think? What do you want to do? What do you do next? What do you want to go explore and have? And then 20%, sometimes you're like, I hear you, but this time we're going to go here, and then we'll go there. Yeah. We've gone to places just for a kid or a kid's needs or desire. Like, okay, you want to do that? Let's go.
Wow.
But most of the kids are on board, and they love the adventure, man. They love travel.
And so, practical question here for all of our left brain guys out there who are like, all right, Greg,
like, hold up.
How are you pulling this off, man? Even from like a business standpoint. And I'm asking that question because last year we did a 7-week road trip, let alone a 7-month adventure. And I found it very difficult to balance work while on the road. I live a very flexible lifestyle here in Austin, Texas, where I have my home office. And like, I feel great about working for myself and the amount of flexibility I have in my life here. But on the road, it was really hard to hold down any type of like podcasting schedule, group calls, because there's so many unknown variables on the road. Yep. It was creating...
And take that international, bro. And you're like, yeah, dude, what? You guys don't have internet here? Like,
what? Oh, Greg, so going back to 2008, I got married in Krasnoyarsk, Siberia. When I left my corporate job to go be an entrepreneur, I took a few months off, and it was exactly that. I spent 3 months trying to get online, let alone I was like, I'm gonna go to Siberia, build my business. I'll be in coffee shops everywhere, and wow, that's not how it went down.
No internet. Do you know what was funny for us? We were at international for a few years, and we moved to Alaska, and like these international places, remote international places, had better internet than Alaska. And I was like, you guys are kidding me! Like, we're toast. And so that was just a funny thing. We rolled in there like, okay, this is the worst.
So are you working when you're on the road, when you're going to these places? Like, how much?
Yes, obviously with a lot of flexibility, but we build in. So when we first started traveling, man, we were just like, go. It was like tourism, like see all the sights, go, go, go. It was exhausting, right? And kids and luggage and losing kids and losing stuff. It was crazy.
Sounds like hold on, I'm going to bookmark that story. Yeah. Coming back to that later.
So the chaos and the exhaustion of it, we realized, okay, hold up. Like, we like the lifestyle. We got to slow way down so that we have work days. We have education days where the kids are just chilling, reading, doing their studies, doing their classes. I'm working. And then we go out for dinner at a new restaurant or go see some sights in the evenings or weekends. So we slow it way down so that we could have some schedules and kind of structure. So that helps a ton. And so now it's way easier. Like, our first question with an Airbnb is, how fast is the internet? Send me a picture of the speeds, right?
Ooh, yeah.
So when we roll in, I'm like, and I have a specific bag with all my work stuff. So microphones, video equipment, laptop, everything's in one bag. I know right where that is. Grab that. I can walk into a new house, pop online, and we verify that it's fast and good. And then I pick a little corner. And my wife's really good about this. She'll look through all the pictures on a VRBO or something and say, okay, boom, that's where we can work. Right. And so I'll jump in there, set things up, and get back to work. So we've learned how to get better at that.
And when you go to Portugal, you're landing on a spot to be in for weeks or months at a time?
So this time, it's just my wife and I were just taking a little. So every year, my wife and I take a 10 to 14 day trip, just the two of us, and go do something extraordinary together. It's just a huge investment in our marriage and our relationship. So this is it. This time we're going to go spend 2 weeks in Portugal, just the two of us.
So is there a cadence to your year then of how much time you and your wife get? How much is kids' time? Is there an equation here, or is it always changing?
An ideal. So once a month, we get an overnighter for our marriage. Every quarter, maybe 2 to 3 nights, a little getaway. And then every year, a big trip. So, but like big as in last year, we chartered a private yacht with some other couples and sailed around the Galapagos. The year before that, we hiked the Inca Trail into Machu Picchu. And the year before that, we rode camels into the Sahara. I mean, we go do something really special, really memorable. And then I'll take the kids on solo trips, take them and go do amazing things. So we have that just really cool bond and memory and experience of just one parent, one child having this memory together that we hold on to for the rest of our lives. And then we do family stuff where we take all of us and just go do something really cool. In fact, last week, I got invited to go climb Kilimanjaro. I'm like, I'm going to offer this to my teens. I'm like, okay, guys, here's the deal. You got to pay for all of it yourself. We're doing the climb and we're doing a safari, but you have to pay for every penny. And they're to the point where they can. And that was part of the deal. I'm like, I want you to earn all of it and train. And my 3 teens are like, we're in, man. Where do we sign up? So,
Wow.
so that'll be a really special experience with those 3 now. And we'll go, just the 4 of us, we'll go with some friends and go have an epic adventure in Africa.
Was your family a big traveling family when you were a kid, or where did you get bit by the travel bug?
So yeah, awesome question. It's a total different thing. I grew up in a broken home. My dad split when I was really young. Stepdads came and went. Man, we were on welfare. We were broke. I racked my brain. I remember 2 trips as a kid. We drove to Yellowstone National Park, and then one time we drove to Galveston, Texas. Like, that was it. And then I was out on my own early. And when Rachel and I got married, we were broke, man. I was totally broke, just barely getting by. We literally didn't start traveling until we had 4 kids. But reading is what got it. We just got into these books and all these different things. And I did get to go on a humanitarian trip and some service trips to Central and South America. And that kind of lit my fire. And I was like, Rach, you got to come with me. So she and I took a trip, and she's like, we got to do this with our kids. Like, we've got to allow them to have this global perspective, right?
Yeah.
Connect to the same humanity that we all share, and yet totally different cultures and traditions. Like, you jump into India with arranged marriages and different foods and smells and languages and cultures, or over into Morocco. The difference, I don't know, it lights us up. We love learning from every place we go and just seeing what they have to offer, what the place has to offer.
Do you speak multiple languages?
So I speak fluent Spanish. I'm really close to fluency in French. And I think if we move to Portugal, Portuguese will be next. If not, it'll be Arabic. I made a commitment to myself. I'm going to become fluent in a new language every 5 years.
Wow.
Just for the rest of my life.
And so you don't sleep, it sounds like.
No, I sleep really well, bro. You got to prioritize that. It's optimization, right?
Yeah.
And well, it's forced optimization, because you get married, you're like, okay, this is more responsibility. Then you have your first kid, and we adopted our first. And we're like, dude, what did we do with all of our free time before we had a child? We thought we were busy. And then the kids keep coming, and you have to optimize. And so you figure out, okay, well, I still have the same amount of time, but I have to figure out how to do more and do it better.
Was your first child adopted, did you say?
Yes, our first daughter is adopted. Yep.
Got it. And then from there, any other adoptions?
No, we were able to get pregnant after that. I guess it was kind of meant to be.
Wow. There's so many different pathways that we can travel here. Craig, you've given me 12 options of where we can take this conversation. I'm enjoying just all the meandering that we're doing. We're having a chat like you travel. Let me go back to Portugal for a minute. Okay, so you're going to Portugal with your wife. This is an epic, just the 2 of you type adventure, but you're also scouting it to see if you want to take your whole family there.
Yep.
Okay, so let's just hone in on that for a second. When you go to Portugal and you guys are looking around, what are you looking for? Do you have a checklist that you're going through? Does it have this? Does it have that?
Yep. And it fits into, and this is actually really cool. And I'm glad you asked, because it gives me a chance to articulate like kind of our core life philosophy and strategy. There we go. Like what lines up with what do we really want to achieve? And so I learn languages, musical instruments, athleticism. So, and I love martial arts. So we do martial arts together here. First, when we land over there, I'm going to go check out a couple of gyms, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to look for big adventures that we love as a family: paddleboarding, kayaking, mountain biking, horseback riding. We're going to look for lessons for the kids. Like, we love hiring local tutors across the spectrum of, from academics to athletics. So we're going to look for that. We're going to look for just a cool vibe. You know this because you've traveled, right? You traveled all over. Like, certain towns and cities have this vibe. They have this feel. And you're like, this is a cool place. And there's a lot to offer. We're going to look, my wife and I, every week we go out to a fancy restaurant. We love nice restaurants, right? And so we're going to look for restaurants around the area. If there's things close by, some kind of proximity to orchestra or symphony or museums, castles. How can we study history? And then big adventures, and then access points. What's really cool about Portugal, man, is you can buy cheap flights all of Northern Africa, all of Europe, of course, and then you're jumping into the Mediterranean. I mean, it's an access point to a lot of cool places.
Are you going to hone in on one city in Portugal, or are you going to couple days in each city?
Yep, we're going to check out all of Lisbon and then the southern coast. So those are our two areas. All the research we've done online and everyone we talk to, those are our two target areas. Yeah. So let's go rent a car and just wander, meander, have adventures, eat good food, play, check things out.
So last year, Tatiana and I and the kids went to Isla Mujeres. Have you been there?
So no, I know we lived right along there, but I never actually made it to the island. Ridiculously.
Dude, it was one of my favorite adventures. It was one of my favorite adventures because the island had the things that we valued, like healthy food, as an example, right? Same. And at the same time, it felt really small. Like you ride around on a golf cart on the whole island. You could ride from one end of the island to the other in 20, 25 minutes. And it was literally, we said multiple times, this is one of the greatest vacations that we've ever had. I was a little nervous because before that we were in Playa del Carmen at like an all-inclusive Grand Hyatt type deal for a week. Yep. And that was amazing. But it's also like every other Hyatt everywhere in the world, yep. Which I'm not complaining. I mean, super fortunate to have spent a week there. But dude, from a cultural standpoint, you know, and experience. Plugging into the town, where have you been to that feels like that small town? It's safe. You get access to good food. You can get around. Where have you been in the world that kind of has that vibe?
So this might surprise you and most of the guys listening. So our first rodeo, we did the exact same thing, bro. All-inclusive resorts, no hotels. And we don't even eat fast food, but on our first rodeo, we're like, we only eat at approved chains.
Yeah,
like
that's right.
KFC, we can eat there. And now after that, we're like, what were we thinking? So now, and here's the answer to your question, like we've found small towns and we prefer to stay away from the really touristy areas, right?
Yeah.
You go see the cool touristy sites. They're awesome. They're worth it. But then when you can get away from that, we've actually found these safe, small towns, these unique cultural vibes all over the place. Like I haven't been to a country that didn't have some special places like that. And it's interesting, often we find ourselves saying, man, this is cool enough. Like we could probably live here. And we say that a lot, which is, it's kind of this testament to the world's cool, man. And most of the people are really good, really kind. They would way rather give you the shirt off their back than hurt you. Although, I mean, there's some rotten people in some rotten places, right? But by and large, we found it to be safe, fun, open, and cool. People just trying to live a good life.
Yeah. Being that you're fluent in Spanish, do you tend to lean towards countries where you can speak the language?
We did. So our first 6 years of travel, we lived in every country in Central America. And so we took a lot of time, and it was because of that. I'm like, we gotta speak the language, right?
Yeah.
And it was, what was interesting is because I had this kind of unrealistic fear of not being able to speak the language.
Sure.
And then we've decided, we're like, you know what, let's go. We sold our vehicle and we were living in Costa Rica and we moved to Germany. I'm like, here we go, man. No language skills. And we liked the remote areas. So we ended up you end up doing a lot of charades, man. It's like you trying to use Google Translate, trying to draw things, like act things out, and it works. And we've had the funnest connections and cool experiences with this old farmer in the middle of nowhere, just trying to figure out how to find something, right? And so we went all through Hungary and we went through all across Europe, right? And you get in some of those countries and there is no English and their language isn't anything close to, our kind of alphabet. And you're just like, let's just figure this out. And
dude, when you're sitting
on it.
When you're sitting around the table with your family, what are some of the stories that come up naturally? Like, does your family have go-to stories? They're like, that one time in this city, that city. Yeah. Like, what are a couple of the stories that your kids love to tell, or that your family, maybe your family brand has sort of anchored to, that maybe are the epitome of your travel adventures and the joy that you experience?
Yeah. What comes up, I think obviously, right, naturally are the extremes, like the biggest contrasts. Mm-hmm. So one example is like we lived in Morocco for a while. In the city's called Marrakesh. And there's this market there. It's like 900 years old outdoor market called Djem El Fana. And it's wild, man. There's still cobras and snakes. And
I've been there.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about. And
dude. Yeah, I went as a kid.
Yeah, it's so cool. And so you have the souk and the Medina, and there's like 14 miles of market paths and just unreal. You're eating who knows what, and they're great artisans, right? They're making all this stuff, and you're deep into their culture and their religion and their world. And we were there for a few months. Like we lived right there in the Medina. And we took martial arts class there, right? This was our best. This is probably one of our favorite experiences. My kids were littler, but we went over to this Taekwondo class every night. It was a 2-hour training, 3 days a week. The cost for 2 hours was the equivalent of $1.
Wow.
And I was like, score. And this guy was good, but he was one of those intense instructors, right? And so he's just yelling at all his students in Arabic, and we don't understand anything's going on. We're just kind of following along, and ended up having just such a cool experience and really bonding with him and the whole class. And my kids always laugh about that one. Is this guy like screaming in Arabic, and we're like, okay, whatever he's saying, let's go, let's do that.
Dude, I remember being in a market. I remember being in a market, walking out, and I got like lost in whatever shopping. My parents went somewhere else, and I couldn't see them for a minute.
Yeah.
And my heart dropped. I thought I had lost my crew in the marketplace, and that was really scary.
Especially there.
I remember it.
Like you could get legitimately lost.
Yeah, but I remember the cobras, dude. I have a picture with me holding this cobra. There was some searing memories from that area. And even like going across the Straits of Gibraltar, my dad thought we were going to get like these two ferries were going to collide. He was a Navy captain, and I've never seen my dad scared except for in that moment. But yeah, super grateful for my parents for creating some of those adventures as well. Yeah, those are great stories, man. It's so wild. Is there any place you wouldn't travel to? Is there any place that you're like, nah, it's not, we're probably never going to go there? I mean, the obvious ones, North Korea, you know?
Well, okay. Ironically, my daughter, she just turned 15. Like North Korea is at the top of her list.
Wow.
She genuinely wants to go. And they'll let people in. I mean, you can't take any pictures. You have to have a guide with you 24/7. You have all these rules, but you can go in and see a few things and go out. And so that's been on hers. I guess after traveling to so many places and going to places where people are like, don't ever go there, that's dangerous. And then you talk to people who've been and they're like, actually, it was beautiful. It was sweet. Mm-hmm. It was wonderful. The people were incredible. I kind of removed my never. Obviously, I wouldn't go to places where there's a lot of turmoil in the moment. If there's a lot of political unrest, if things are really chaotic at the time, I'll say not now. Right. But then things change. I've been in countries that were so peaceful. And then 2 years later, man, there was a coup. And I'm like, okay, we can't go there for a while. I got to let things settle down. But I don't have genuinely anything on the planet that I haven't, like, that I've completely blacklisted that I wouldn't go at some time. I want to see the world, man. I really do. It's just this curiosity.
A good part of it.
Yeah.
How about financing this, Greg? I mean, practical question for us dads who are sitting around going, dude, how do you fund all this? And obviously I can come up with various answers, but let's talk about the practicality of how you finance these experiences.
Yeah. When we started, it's been a journey is the answer. Because when we started, I had the regular paycheck, every other Friday, and I worked for it. And I was like, I couldn't see the possibility of location independent work.
Yeah.
And so we would try something. I had some investments. Here's how we started. We dumped all of our investments, all of our money, all of our efforts into real estate and the stock market in 2007. And we're like, we're good. Let's go travel. And then in 2008, we're like, let's go home and get a job. Like we lost it. We got it handed to us. And so then, it was just trying to figure it out. And what was cool though, is I started meeting all kinds of families that travel all the time, or families that just live abroad from all over the earth. They meet up in these melting pots around the world. And I was like, how do you fund it? How do you fund it? How do you fund it? What we found is there were as much variety in professions and income as there were people. And they just came up with the most creative ideas for income. Mm. And I was like, man, if it can be done, then I can do it. And so we started strategically building a business around something we thought was really valuable, that was helpful, and that was location independent. And so for us, that just turned naturally to coaching, life and business coaching, just because like I kind of built my life from scratch, being out on my own at 16 and like just reading voraciously, interviewing people. I'm like, this stuff works. And so I started sharing it. And it's part of my life's work and my mission. So I just turned to coaching, and then I was coaching through Zoom as the technology improved and the internet improved around the world. It made it that much easier. So we just do coaching now.
Man, that's so great. I was watching, I got to tell you this, man, right before we were jumping on live here, I'm downstairs sitting with Tatiana on the couch, and I'm watching some of your Instagram videos, right? And I'm just plugging into who Greg is. And Tatiana goes, man, I love this guy. So first of all, you get the approval of my wife, who's excited to meet you at some point. You brought something up that really hit home with her. And I'm going to weave this in now anyway, just because it makes sense. We were just watching these videos. You talked about this notification, I think, that goes off on Saturdays at 8 a.m.
Yep.
And it's that they'll never be this old again, right? Is that the wake up call, if you will?
Every Saturday morning now it's been years, man. They were little. Something had happened. It was probably a painful moment where maybe I'd lost my patience with them or got upset at the kids. Maybe the guys listening have done this. It's bedtime. The toddlers won't listen, and you bark at them, and then they go to bed. They fall asleep. You feel so bad. You go back to apologize, and they're asleep. And I'm literally sitting there on my knees, kneeling next to them, like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. And then I'll apologize the next morning. And I stopped doing that because it hurt so bad to do it. But then it was way back then when they were little, and I realized, look how big they are. They were just in my arms. They were just born or adopted. They're getting big. And so I set that alarm to go off every Saturday at 8 a.m. They will never be this old again. Mm. And for me, it was like every Saturday, you take a marble out of a jar, so to speak, and you drop it in the garbage can. Like, whoop. Well, it's like the weeks are gone. And man, it's flown by. Our oldest daughter moved out now. She's living over in Texas and doing her life and her thing, just really succeeding as an adult. And our second oldest, our son, he turned 18 today. And that kid, we bought him a motorcycle for his birthday. He's ready to just go off and do his own thing, right?
Holy shit.
So they're moving fast, bro. And as fast as they came in, they're going to go. And I'm like, I'm going to cherish this. I have to cherish this, because the time we have those kids under your roof and under your care is so fleeting.
7 kids, ages 5 to 19. So you've had some experience here, man. I'm sure you got a lot of dad advice when you were getting started. Which advice turned out to be true?
I think most impactful later on. Isn't that kind of lame? Like, you hear advice and you're like, okay, but it's later you're like, man, that was solid. It was the same thing. It was from older guys saying, hey man, lean into it, like, cherish it. It passes. Yeah. And I heard them, but I was like, dude, I'm finger deep in diapers, bro. Lots of them. And we don't sleep, because one kid finally goes back to sleep and the other one wakes up. So I'm like, we're exhausted.
Yeah.
And it feels like those days feel like they'll never pass. And then when you look back, you're like, where'd they go? So that one was solid. The older guys were like, hey man, it'll fly by. Just, you're good. Because it felt like it would never pass.
Fellas, I want to take a minute and share something personal with you. A few years ago, at the high point of my professional career, I felt like I was really struggling at home. And I knew I could be doing so much better in my marriage and as a father to my 2 boys. So I invited 30 guys to get together and talk about how we could win at home. And today, the Brotherhood has grown, and it consists of 200 guys from 10 different countries. And recently, we decided to define our core values. What made this community so unique? Why was it growing so quickly and with such great guys? And how do we want to show up for each other going forward? What type of people would we want to have join us? And this is what we came up with. Our core value number 1 is what we call 5 whys. And this is about authentic curiosity. And here's what it reads. We are humble, lifelong learners searching for level 10 success within each of our 6 pillars. We ask big questions, and we're vulnerable when big questions are asked of us. No bullshit, no posturing, just a deep willingness to be better. We are grounded in our mission to be family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. We are hungry for wisdom that allows us to connect more deeply. We are conscious of our egos and choose to rise above them. Suspending judgment, we want to see things from a new perspective, aware of our blind spots, facing fears. We see failure as feedback. We choose growth. Value number 2, we call this one lead domino. This is about intentional execution. We take massive action. We believe in deliberate participation with full presence. We show up, step up, and speak up. Our calendars reflect our priorities, making time for what matters most. Decisive, focused. We are conscious and calculated. We make moves that are efficient and effective, creating with confidence, intentional routines and rhythms. We believe in building momentum through healthy habits. Aware of our core values, we apply our true strengths and stay in our zone of genius. We are men of our word. We honor our commitments. No excuses, no time to waste, all in engagement now. And finally, number 3, we call this one rising tide. This is about communal drive. We believe in the power of unified and aligned strengths, creative cooperation and collaboration, team effort. We honor our ethos of engagement to build true connections, respect, trust. We believe in diverse opinions and inclusive conversations, freely sharing our best resources, helping each other win. We are the source. We believe in community challenges that drive healthy competition, legacy and 7G impact, band of brothers. Everyone gives more than they take. We prop each other up through unconditional generosity. Together, we go further, faster. Now listen, guys, if those values resonate with you and you're considering joining the Brotherhood, here's what one of our members has to say about their experience.
I just wanted to say that one of the reasons that I'm part of Front Row Dads is that just knowing that I'm part of this group helps me holding myself to a higher standard. I started out today saying that I wanted to get involved and outside my comfort zone, even though the language barrier. And I wanted to just thank all of you for being a safe place to be outside the comfort zone. And also, especially to Josh for holding me accountable when we were on the team now. And one from the team was supposed to share what we've been talking about. He just pointed at me and said, you asked for it. So this one's on you. And I like the fact that I'm being held accountable and being held to a higher standard. That's why I'm here.
Look, man, the time is now to pour into your family. No matter how great you are at fatherhood, marriage, or juggling your work and your personal life calendar, we can help you be better. And if you're ready to take the next step, go to frontrowdads.com and click Join the Brotherhood. So you're leaning in. You got lots of energy, Greg. Do you get tired, man? Do you still find yourself there's slumps that you find yourself in? Are you some days just like, fuck this, I can't do this anymore? I mean, you're a coach, you're out traveling the world, you're doing karate, you're martial arts, dude, you seem like you're all energy. Does that battery ever run out?
At 9:30 every night, like the lights go
like
out,
clockwork.
bro. I'll be sitting there every day. Hey, this is great. I'm just like,
that's great.
Really, my wife razzes me about it because even when we got engaged, 9:30, I'm just lights out, and I kind of set those two modes, and I do it intentionally, man. I want to live with energy. I want to show up, right? Like for my marriage, for my kids. If my kids, okay, here's why. My dad only came around to visit every once in a while, right? Every once in a great while, he'd show up. And I must have been 14 or 15 one time when he rolled in. I was like, hey, Dad, good to see you, man. Let's wrestle. And I was 14, 15-year-old boy. I just want to wrestle. And he's like, oh, don't touch me. I don't wrestle. Like, oh, no, I don't wrestle. And that just seared my soul. I'm like, I will never do that to my kids. When my youngest is a teen and wants to wrestle, she better watch out because I'm going to put her in some jiu-jitsu moves, right? I'm going to go and I'll be like, here's what you get. And they love it. Yeah. They love wrestling, love the energy. If they want me to get on the trampoline, they want me to go run some epic adventure with them, right? Go climb some big mountain, I'm in. And so I knew in order to do that, I had to maintain my health and my energy levels. And so I'm with you, super healthy food, intense exercise, great routines, great sleep, good morning rituals, good evening rituals, and generating energy. So I generate energy, and then at about 9:30, 10, bro, I'm out.
I know that childhood was challenging for you. Were there memories that you had either with your dad or a father figure where, man, these were searing memories on a positive note? Somebody stepped up for you, somebody taught you something, somebody, helped you enter manhood in a positive way.
One of the sweetest, most generous, profound moments in my life that I couldn't appreciate at the time happened when I was 16 or 17. I was trying to go to high school. I was already out on my own. I was trying to go to high school and work to eat and survive. And at this point, I'm like, I can't do both, man. And so I went to school to clear out my locker and drop out of high school so I could work full time to stay alive. And a football coach was there. He's like, "What are you doing, man?" He's like, I told him, like, I can't do school and work and live. He's like, "Hold up, sit down, set your stuff down." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Just sit down." He runs in his office, and man, it brings tears now having been a dad. He runs in his office. He calls his wife. He's like, "Hey, I got a student here. Can he come live with us?" What, man? And they had a little girl that was like 1. And for them to open up their home to this teenage boy and let me live with him, and they loved me, and they took me on trips. I think I went on more trips in the few months I was with them than I did, my whole childhood. But those two showed me what a marriage looks like, a beautiful marriage, and how to cherish his daughter. They ended up having 5 or 6 kids, but their generosity, their example. So yeah, man, that guy was a man. And I've always wanted to do honor to him and his goodness to me at this time. It was tough. And the examples before that, honestly, had been rare.
Mm. What happened at 16 that you set out on your own?
It was more conflict with the stepdad at the time, and mom. It seemed like there was some fighting. And here's what's interesting, man. Those years were hard. And then when I went to live in other countries, I was like, okay, my life was easy, right? It's that perspective switch.
I totally understand what you're talking about right now.
So at the moment, you're like, this is so hard. And
yeah, right.
You go to some shanty town in Africa and you're like,
that's exactly
dude,
right.
Homelessness in that country is nice
I had it
compared to this. So,
yeah.
So it's all relative, right? But at the time, I was like, I'm done, man. I'm out. Like, I'm leaving. I just wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to be independent. I wanted to start life. But I was shy. I was insecure. I was broke. And so those were tough years, but they were super formative years.
Yeah.
Which I'm grateful for.
I don't think you know this, dude, but I moved out when I was 17. I lived in the basement of my friend's house for high school, and I barely graduated. I was a straight A student in my sophomore year, and I barely graduated high school, and didn't even go to my high school graduation. Like, it was just a rough time. I had a green Jeep CJ7, and I remember loading it up and heading from Pennsylvania to Virginia Beach to go live there for the summer when graduation was happening. I remember driving on the road. And I almost felt like I wore that with a badge of honor. Like, now I look back and I realized that maybe that could have been cool to give my parents the gift of watching me graduate high school and things like that at that time, because I had eventually moved back in with them midway through my senior year. I moved back in. But I'm the same thing. Like, at the time, it was like, oh, poor me. And I had a lot of self-pity, and, it was like, this is really tough. And then you grow up a little bit and you're like, oh man, I definitely could have seen that all very differently had I been empowered with maybe different resources. And that's not a poke at my parents or whatever. It was my own doing, my choices. But
the changing point in my life, I think you're spot on here. Thanks for sharing that story. I didn't know that. Is at some point in that journey, I don't remember where, is like, I realized, like, I got to draw a line in the sand, and whatever has happened. But from here on out, my life will be what I make of it. Like, everything else stays there. I'm not playing the victim anymore. Like, but until that point, I was the mayor of Victimville, man.
Dude, 100%.
Everybody and everything.
I was also really short. And I remember when I watched the movie Rudy. Do you remember that movie Rudy? Right? That was one of the moments when I'm like, oh, you don't have to be a victim of your whatever cards you're dealt. You can, they can become your asset.
Exactly.
That was a big moment for me. Any other, what about movies for you, man? Any movies that moved you as a young man?
Later, we went to some plays, musicals that changed everything.
And you're talking, how old are you talking?
So I was in like late teens, early 20s, right?
Really?
I saw Man of La Mancha. And it's the story of, well, they've taken a lot of creative liberties with it, but what it's this idea of the Don Quixote de la Mancha, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this character doesn't even play out in the book, right? But in the play, in the musical, it's Dulcinea, and she lives a rough life, but he treats her like a queen, and she just transforms, right? And I've always been drawn to that story. And then now my all-time favorite book, hands down, and musical is Les Miserables. And same thing, Jean Valjean, like tough lot, early start, rough go, steal some bread to help his sister, 19 years of hard labor. And this kindness of this bishop is enough light to reach into the darkness and create this transformation. And then Jean Valjean becomes this unbelievable man. And I guess, so to answer your question, I've always been drawn to stories like that of transformation, where you're given this a tough shot at life, and you just fight your way out of it and find a mentor and make something of yourself. So yeah, those just hit me right in the heart and the mind, and make me want to level up and just keep growing.
And now serving men in the way that you do, what do you see as, I don't know if it's fair to say commonality, or if there's a pattern emerging in our current climate, with the men right now that you're serving? What are you seeing that they need the most? Is there a common cure, if you will, to, a common transformational element that you're seeing across the board? And I know no two people are completely alike, but
there's definitely some common denominators.
Yeah.
So you're spot on with that. In fact, I opened 2 documents. So I keep tons of notes. I write every day, and I open these 2 documents really along the same line of core problems and core solutions, and being able to work with thousands of people literally across 5 continents. Like, okay, there's some commonalities here. And so I think there's a few of them. And yes, there's some applications the application may look different for each man, but there's some pretty core and common applications.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing I want to share, though, that I've seen, which is really fascinating, which was true for me and has been true for almost everyone I work with, I've noticed that almost always the greatest limiting factor in a man's life are his own limiting beliefs about himself. Even from really successful guys. I mean, my clients are super successful, right? They've got millions and millions of dollars and built these huge empires, great families, great achievements, been professional athletes, whatever, right? And even they, after all that success, when they want to approach a new venture, they're like, man, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I have what it takes. I just feel it's this limitation, right? And it's kind of a cool idea, a cool concept to think of, like, if I get out of my own way, if I remove this self-doubt, what's possible? Who might I become? What might I achieve if I could just set that aside and chase it? And it's been incredible as they make these transformations. But that's one factor that I think is there, and maybe has always been there. One that's really common right now because of the time is distraction, of course. You know that, man.
Do you have a favorite client success story that you love to tell?
I guess the ones that stand out are the biggest transformations. A client who had been overweight his entire adult life and tried all kinds of stuff, just couldn't kick it. And of course, you start with the mindset, right? And you start here, and then it just carries over to everything else. And within a few months, he got back down to a weight he hadn't been in since high school, right? And just felt so alive and brought back the vitality and strength and confidence in his body and his appearance. And of course, that carries over to the marriage, parenting, success at work. I've had clients that have been struggling for years in their employment. We shifted a couple of things, changed the mindset, had some creative sessions, and they triple or quadruple their income, right? So it's the cool ones that there's a transformation that happens that trickles through the whole spectrum of their life. Mm-hmm. Changes family relationships, family experiences, moving. Oh, here's one. They moved from a house they'd kind of felt stuck in for years, and a neighborhood they didn't want to be in, shifted all the stuff at work and confidence and skill, and just able to leave that and get into a new world. Literally take their family and get into an entirely new world. Like, anytime we can do that, it's a beautiful thing.
Mm. You put out a book recently, right? Becoming Dangerous? Was that the book?
So that's the one that's coming out. I'm writing that right
coming
now.
out. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
It's coming out. Yep.
Yeah. A little preview on that, man. What's that about?
So it's just this idea of a good man who is dangerous enough to the bad things, right? and this idea of confidence and competence, of standing up with your shoulders back, saying, look, kind of this idea of like, don't mess with me, because the world, as much as, and I think the world's a beautiful place, and I think the world's a safe place, but there is malice. There really is. And we've got to be ready to defend and protect our family, ourselves and our family and those around us, particularly people who cannot defend themselves. Like, I want to be there. I want to be that guy. And this isn't just like weapons or fighting, although that's included, but medical knowledge, right? So perfect example. Luckily, it happened right in college. I was on my way to college, just recently married, and I'm sitting at a stoplight, and right in front of me, this huge accident happens. So I go running over to help, and I had a little bit of training, and I get there, and the driver was in pretty bad shape, and the guy had opened the door, and he was just sitting there, and I was like, hey, did you start first aid? Are you helping her? And he was holding her hand, and he looked at me with just this look of horror. And he said, I have no idea what to do. And that impacted me so profoundly in that moment that, like, I don't ever want to be in an opportunity where I can help somebody and not have the mindset and the skill set to do it. So I got medical training, I got self-defense, weapons training, I got all that stuff. And as we've traveled around the world, just because we're out in life so much, there have been countless opportunities in medical situations specifically, and language, where I needed language, medical training, and some protective training to, and this is humbling, literally save lives. Mm-hmm. Last year when I was with my wife in Ecuador, we climbed this peak, and this couple fell far. And I had to, and physical fitness, right? I had to run back up because I knew that the fire and rescue were 3 hours out. I'm like, dude, I can be there in 40 minutes. And so I ran back up. I dropped my pack. I ran back up to summit. It was at 16,000 feet, right? Oh. That's crazy stuff. and I got up there. I was helping other people. And then this poor woman literally died in my arms.
Oh my God.
I was 12 inches from her face helping her, and she died. And then her boyfriend was up higher, and he was all broken up. And so we were able to package him and take care of him, sustain him, get him stable till rescue got there. And then I helped carry him off the mountain. And so it's like those kind of stories have happened again and again and again. Just because we're out so much, you're going to come across it. But I don't ever want to get in a situation where I'm not capable to at least do something to help. So again, that's the kind of the basis idea is like, make yourself useful, make yourself capable and competent and confident where you can help out. Maybe it's a financial situation. Maybe it's an emotional, mental situation. Whatever it is, like, make the most of yourself so you're of tremendous utility to the people around you.
Mm. Man, just taking a moment to like really feeling what that must have been like, man, for you to have run back up and to have held somebody when they transitioned out of this world, and then to have completed a rescue for that person's partner. Holy cow. That's amazing. My brain right now, I'm almost observing my brain go into a scenario scan. Am I capable of this one? Am I capable of this one? What would I do if this occurred? Immediately, that's the way I start thinking things through. What's then a priority? If I'm going to train for something next, what's the most likely situation where I want to be capable and competent and know what to do if this arises? So do you address that in the book of like a priority? Hey, if you're going to learn things, this is the one I suggest learning first.
Yes. And I love the way you did that mentally, just like, okay, this, like lay this out. Like, where do I need to be more capable? I think the priority is, so I came up with what I call the triple trifecta. Mm-hmm. And I ended up like it's 3 interlocking triangles.
Logo's badass, man.
Yeah. That's happening. I'm like,
Logo's
hey,
badass.
what are these fundamental things that every man needs to have like in his skill set? And it was the triple trifecta. And the first trifecta is mind, body, spirit. Mm-hmm. So we've got to be mentally there, because if you get rattled here by a natural disaster or an internal disaster or a family disaster, right? If you can get taken out of the game and out of the scenario mentally, you've lost before it's even begun. So you got to be able to keep your cool and keep your head, right? So there's a lot of work there. You're exercising your mind, you're training your brain as a piece, and then the body, right? You got to get your body in a condition, because even if your mind's sharp and your spirit's great, but physically you can't handle it. Like that day, I had to summit 16,000, came down to 14, summited to 16 again, and then I had to run off in the dark. I literally ran off the mountain. When I got to the bottom, I just collapsed, just out of total exhaustion. And they were helping me in the car. And then, of course, the emotion of it all, having just witnessed that. As soon as my wife grabbed me, I was just, it was a lot, man. But you got to be in the spot. I actually have this sitting on my desk here, and I think it's worth showing. It's kind of a wheel of life. You can see these. There's a lot of them online. But if you do an assessment on yourself and you kind of fill in the chart, it's a piece of a pie maybe, and you fill in each one and you assess yourself and you realize, man, in this area, I'm way off. And you see it as a wheel. You're trying to go down the road, the wheel of manliness or the wheel of competence. And you're trying to go down the road and you have this one total missing spoke or whatever. You're trying to gain momentum. You're going to feel that every time you go around. Bam, bam, bam. And if you got a couple spots, bam, 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 bam. And it's just hard to get momentum and move through life. So you do exactly what you're just doing, like start assessing yourself. It's like, where am I at? Where am I at mentally and spiritually and emotionally and physically? Where am I at financially? How am I doing? And then strategically build that into morning routines and evening routines and daily rituals. So you start kind of filling in the wheel, and then it's amazing what you can accomplish when you take like a holistic approach.
So triple trifecta, the first trifecta is mind, body, spirit. What's the second one?
So they're all F's, right? So the first one's fitness. And so it'll be mentally, so mind, body, spirit, so mentally, physically, and spiritually fit. The second one's family. And the three inside family are marriage, parenting, and family legacy. Mm-hmm. And then the third one is finances, which includes your income, just optimizing your income, your expenditures, and your investments. So it's getting all of you fit, mind, body, spirit, getting your family just totally dialed in, and then getting your finances dialed in.
That's great. I love that. It's really great. I think it's simple and clean. It's powerful, man. What's something right now that you're learning to be capable, right? Like a new skill. What are you acquiring right now this year, 2022?
I just listened to the episode about guns, right?
Clay Martin.
I loved that one. That was fun. It was fun listening to him. I had guns years ago. My brother was an air marshal and he was SWAT. He just taught us all that stuff. And so I carried for a while. And then I went for years traveling. I mean, you can't travel with a weapon.
Yeah, right.
So I went away from it all. And then I just kind of, for fun, met some guys. I'm like, I want to get back into this. And so I've been doing some training in that, just really, really trying to level up, just going with some hardcore guys and getting the training there. So that's just one fun thing I've been working on. Krav Maga every week at a new level. Everything I'm doing, I'm just like, hey, where's the next level for me? Where's the training? We signed up for Kilimanjaro. I got to get in fantastic shape again to get over 19,000 feet. And so I'm constantly reading, like just devouring books. I've read a book a week for over the last 2 decades. I still keep up that pace.
All these look like classics behind you.
Yeah, they are. They're all the great classics.
What's a great classic for you, man? What book back there makes your heart sing the most?
Shakespeare's always amazing.
Tell me real quick. So I'm seeing a trend here. Instead of a movie, you were like, there was a play, and then you just brought out Shakespeare. And so, by the way, I have a very difficult time trying to get into Shakespeare and things like that. What does it mean to you? Tell me more.
Well, it's just, so the old thinkers, especially, that's what makes it a classic, right? I'll throw this out right now. I think it's unbelievably important for all of us to learn and study across all genres and cultures and traditions and across time. So if we can cross space and time, it really gives us a massive advantage because we learn how to think. And so if you can go, back to Shakespeare and his stories, especially the authors who get humanity, right? They understand human nature and they put it into their plays or their stories. And this is true of like Harry Potter even, and these modern movies and books. Like if they get human nature and they put it into their characters, then you figure out how to live your own hero's journey.
Yeah.
Right? You model that and you're like, hey, where's right and wrong? And where am I going to stand? And what am I going to do when it's really hard to do the right thing? And you're faced with a serious moral dilemma.
Yeah.
And constantly reading these things and strategically thinking how they went through it, how they decided, what they did about it. it's every day. It's just giving you these reminders and these tools to be your best self.
Greg, I don't know how you do it all, man. I started off thinking that. I've ended this interview thinking that. I think you're doing a tremendous amount of stuff with your life. You're going after it big. And I really want to give you an acknowledgement for that. 7 kids, 50 some countries, right? Taking care of all these elements of your life, your triple trifecta, the models that you're building, the life that you're building, the life you're sharing. I mean, the fact that you even have time to join me for a conversation today and explore these things. It's just amazing, man. It really, really is. I want to just say now that I wish you an amazing adventure ahead with your wife in Portugal. I can't wait to follow along with all the adventures I know you're sure to create. I definitely know that this conversation for me has given me some new energy of what's possible and some excitement to revisit our travel calendar and especially to take that trip with my wife. Like that's probably one of the things I'm going to take from this. And so I'm feeling very inspired, Greg. I thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want the guys to know before we sign off and say goodbye?
Yeah, just thank you for saying that. That's very kind of you. And thanks for the opportunity to be here and for the work you're doing. But right now, I don't think there's any more important work than the work you're doing, man. And the work I get to do as well, right? We're right in that. I think we all have this opportunity to kind of squeeze the juice out of life, so to speak, to really live. And I've always had this fear in the back of my mind of just living a humdrum, mediocre existence. And I decided years ago, I'm like, nah, that's just unacceptable. It's non-negotiable. I want to live while I'm alive. And each of us will define that differently, but the key is define it and then live by it. And just like you said, man, number one thing, pull out your calendar, put stuff on the calendar, honor the calendar, right? Make things happen so that when you get to the end of your life or the end of this year, or the next birthday or whatever it is, you look back, you're like, yeah, man, I lived. That was amazing. I think for me, the worst thing would be to get to the end of my life and look back and be like, oh, it was okay. Blah, right? I don't want to do that. I want to really live. And so that's what drives me. That's it. When I wake up in the morning, I'm excited for a new day of life.
Well, not that you're doing all this for my approval, but I think you're doing a great job of it, man. So it certainly looks like you're living up to that expectation and that intention and that, and also what's really a fear oftentimes driving us of like getting to the end and thinking that we've wasted it all. That's what I'm driven by for sure, is a little bit of that like, holy cow, I don't want to say that when I get to the end. So I'm going to wake up and get going. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. This has been great. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it, man. Guys, for those who are listening, we'll link up all of Greg's goodies in the show notes at frontrowdads.com. I encourage you to check out his work, check out his community, keep learning with and from Greg. And Greg, thank you again, man. I hope we get a chance to continue our conversations and perhaps even an adventure together in the future. Who knows? You're welcome to stop by and see the Vromans when you're in Austin next time, man. We'd love to meet you and your family if you happen to be traveling through.
Agreed. We'll swing on by, brother.
Gentlemen, thanks for listening to the show today. 2 actions to take from here. First, implement one thing that you learned from the interview. And number 2, share this episode with somebody who values being a family man with a business. If you're enjoying the Front Row Dad podcast, the biggest thanks we ever get are honest reviews. So thank you for your feedback in advance. We read all of them. And if you want to learn more about the Brotherhood, which is our private community of 200 men from 6 different countries, visit frontrowdads.com for more info. If you're wondering what the hell the Brotherhood is all about, I'll leave you with some real feedback from guys who are active members and why they are part of our crew. Thanks again for listening to the show, and I'll catch you on the next episode.
You had this passion for wanting to find a way to make you a better parent and a better husband, just better in general. And so you developed this community of like-minded men that aspire to be better and aspire to put family first and business second. And so to me, there's no greater place I'd rather be. You know, people ask me all the time, like, if I could only pick one group, mastermind, organization, whatever to be part of besides my own, it's always yours. And that's it. And by the way, part of that has to do with you and the leader you are and the way that you treat people and how you show up and the level of preparation that you have and the quality and amount of value that you offer. And then part of it's in the community that's been assembled and these unbelievable like-minded men that show up willing and ready to serve and to give and to share. And so to me, there's no better place that I can be spending my time. I look at two different things that we can be doing with our time. One of them is growing relationships and starting first with the most important relationships. And the other one is growing our financial acumen and our wealth to be able to do the things that we want to do and have impact and be able to spend time with the people that we value most by buying that time back. So to me, what you do and what I do is a great marriage of what I think is most important. And I would also throw in there that health is, the other component of that. And I feel like the community that you've built, that each of us have built, is also centered around that. Because you talk about being a great husband, parent, that's going to come from taking care of yourself and making sure that you have the energy to be able to serve. And I do the same thing on a wealth standpoint, because wealth to me is not just about money. It's actually about having the time and the space to have your personal health. I would take having great health over no money any day of the week, rather than the inverse of that, having a lot of money but no health. So to me, those are like the three most important components. And to me, we're always merging those three in the things that we each do. And so I think that's why there's a lot of crossover of, members. That's why what you do resonates so much with me. What I do resonates so much with you. I joined as a lifetime member for that small little window where you offered it. I'm like, I'm in, because I know if I'm going to commit my time anywhere, this is it, because it makes me a better man, makes me a better husband, makes me a better father. It encourages me to really step up my peer group with other like-minded men so that I can be on mission, on point with other people that will hold me accountable at the highest level.
So John and I met a year and a half ago with the launch of my first book. And as we were going through the interview, I began to ask him questions about the brotherhood, and it resonated within me that a community of like-minded, like-hearted men that wanted to win, as he was just saying, at business and in life. And I'd reverse that. I wanted to win as a dad, and then I'd also love to be successful in business, because I feel like if I don't get the dad right, who cares what I did in business? That's my legacy. That's what lives beyond me. So to tribe up with a bunch of dudes going in the same direction with the pillars that are in place and the way that not only are you encouraged, compelled, you're chided, you're laughed with, but you get to pace yourself, but you can get around a band of dudes that you can trust, you can share with, you can grow with. And just recently completed a time with these guys. We did this fast at the start of the new year. Every day I would tune in to the little app where we were sharing comments, and I was so impressed how you could see guys that were further down the road and things like this, guys that were just starting, and the camaraderie, the encouragement. So for myself, this was a total fit, and I would encourage any dude that's looking for a place where you can feel connected with a band of guys wanting to go in the same direction. Front Row Dads is for you.